Okay, it seems I'm live. When I give these talks, I never know whether it's actually working until somebody says, "Yes, I can hear you." I can see myself, so obviously I can be seen, but I don't know if I can actually be heard. So somebody will no doubt tell me at some point you can't hear what I'm saying if you can't. Anyway, one thing I've never spoken about on TV or radio or podcasts or on any of these is aliens, which is, I suppose, quite strange on account of the fact that I have been featured on Ancient Aliens TV show 23 episodes, according to the IMDb listings. So one of the things I'm most famous for is talking about ancient aliens. Well, but I've never actually given a talk about ancient aliens or aliens, and I've never given a podcast or anything to do with that. So just to explain that when I'm on the Ancient Aliens show, usually they'll get me to talk about some historical mystery that I've investigated, say the Ark of the Covenant, and then somebody else will come on after I've set the scene as to what exactly in history the Ark of the Covenant was said to be, and then somebody else will come on and say, it's aliens, it's a ray gun, or whatever. So I don't really go on there and talk about aliens, but I thought maybe just for this once I'd give my side on what I think. Well, my experiences, which might be UFOs or aliens, but it's not the traditional sort of thing. I've not seen a strange metallic craft hovering over me. I have not seen anything like that. I've not been abducted by greys or strange entities with big eyes or anything else. But what I have seen on a number of occasions is what some people refer to as earthlights, basically strange lights that cannot be explained and that seem to have some sort of intelligence behind them, rather than just being some kind of natural phenomena like ball lightning. It reminds me of what one time years ago, going back to Midsummer's Day, the very day that our prince, not Prince Harry, the other one, what's his name? I can't remember the name of our royal family now, but the heir to the throne, what was his name? William. When I know it was the night that Prince William was born, on Midsummer Night, and a few people that I knew had dreams that something strange was going to happen on Cadair Idris, which is a second highest mountain in Wales. I don't suppose people in America would really refer to our mountains in this country as mountains. It's just a big hill. But anyway, Cadair Idris, a mountain in Wales, and there was a few people that had these dreams that something would happen if we camped there. I won't go into the whole story. It's actually referred to in a few books. Andrew Collins writes about it. Paul Devereux, who wrote a book called Earthlights about what UFOs might be, or at least some of them, referred to this incident. And what happened is that night there were about 20 of us camped at the bottom of this high kind of cliff thing that was part of this mountain, Cadair Idris. And I remember we were by this lake at the bottom of the mountain, and somebody had said, a couple of people had said, I feel that something's going to appear there at 2 a.m, or 2:10, or at some particular time in the morning. There was a specific time. And so we had to hike up there. For people who were not used to tramping across moorlands, it was quite hard. It must have been 5 miles from civilization, which isn't much by some countries' standards, but it is in this country, or this, in the United Kingdom. You don't get far from towns and cities and houses very often. But we were quite out in the middle of nowhere. It was dark. We were all camping there. And Paul Devereux, who I said wrote a book called Earthlights, he was with us because he was interested in seeing if it was possible to predict when these things would occur. And at whatever the time was, I'll say 2 o'clock, just as it approached, everyone was there waiting to see if anything happened. And somebody started counting down 10, 9, 8. And when they got to 1, above us, seemingly coming out of this rock face, was this white ball of light that sort of shot out of the rock face, hovered in the air, and then sort of shot off into the sky and disappeared. Now, it couldn't have been a fake, because you couldn't, there's no way. I mean, if you're an experienced mountaineer or rock climber, you might have been able to find your way down there and then have some sort of remote control, something or other that did this light. But back then, you didn't have drones. We didn't know anyone who would have known about this, who would have been capable in the dark of abseiling halfway down a solid rock face. No, and the way it shot off, I mean, this was not of anything I could understand, I could comprehend as being of earthly manufacture, and it wasn't a hoax. But say Paul Devereux, he included it in his book, Earthlights, but he didn't say that because he wanted to say that Earthlights were just natural phenomena, that they were caused when pressure of rocks, the sort of things that cause earthquakes and things, would produce these electromagnetic kind of ball lightning type effects. But that wouldn't account for somebody who weeks before had a dream saying this would happen at a certain time. And a number of other people coming along and saying, no, I know this is going to happen at this time, because these people believed they were being communicated with by extraterrestrials of some kind, or whatever. So whatever this was, it appeared exactly when it was supposed to, which didn't really fit with Paul Devereux's theory. So, that was the first time I saw something like this. And I thought, well, it can't just be a natural phenomenon. I mean, there's nothing up there. In a lot of these people's theories, these lights only appear after, close to an earthquake and in fault lines, but there's nothing like that up there. But what it was, who knows? It just happened to appear virtually the time that Prince William was born, which I think is interesting. Before I go on to the next one, a few people have sent messages. Ian says, morning, Graham. Hello, Ian. Mrs. Tabs, hello, Graham. Lovely to catch you this time. Thank you very much. I really should start saying when I'm going to do these things, but unfortunately, I never know when I'm going to be doing what. Somebody from Spain. Hi there. Mark says, hi from the West Midlands. Well, that's where I am. Well, in the middle of it, in Birmingham, in England. Paul Thompson, top man, Graham, can't watch now, but will later. Yeah, I shall keep it up as I always do. These things, I don't take them down. And Ian says, I read Earthlights years ago, sadly lost my copy in a divorce. Oh, it was a very interesting book. I mean, some of the things that Paul Devereux does describe as being some kind of natural phenomena caused by pressure in rocks probably were. So, that's probably right. But what we saw that day, I can't see it being that, or that night. And then, years later, this again is something that seemed to have some kind of intelligent origin. Hello, Anthony from Dorset. Seemed to have some kind of intelligence behind it. Was this I referred to in my book, The Templars and the Ark of the Covenant, that came out in about 2003, I think. Excuse me while I drink my morning tea. Or is it afternoon? No, it's still morning. We went, myself and 2 friends, Graham and Jody, who I have just written a book with about, called Strange Fate, which is about some pretty weird things, but UFOs and weird lights don't come into it, I think. Can't remember. Anyway, in my book, I explain this in the book, The Templars and the Ark of the Covenant. We were basically researching an area of the West Midlands of England around, or is it the East Midlands? It's a place called the Burton Dasset Hills, and it's not very far from Stratford-upon-Avon, where Shakespeare was said to have been born. You know, anybody who knows my ideas about Shakespeare will know why I said about that. Incidentally, I'm going to be giving a short talk about Shakespeare live on my Facebook, possibly this afternoon. So anyway, we were investigating this hillside because on the top of it was an old Templar chapel and a Templar construction, like I saw. It's called the Beacon, but it was originally built in the Middle Ages as some sort of Templar thing. Can't remember what it was now. Anyway, we were investigating this. So the fact that this light came into things was something that was kind of like nothing to do with the main research that we were conducting. It's just that when we were in the Burton Dasset Hills researching the history of it to do with the Knights Templars, somebody was saying to us, did you know about these strange lights that are seen around here? And we said, oh, that's interesting. Evidently, every so often, this is after heavy rainfall, they say, what happens is people see lights on the hillside. Like going back to, I looked at newspaper articles going right back to the early 1900s, early 20th century, that refer to every so often these strange lights being seen there. There was one case of a signalman in, you know, a signal box when they used to have those things that change the points and things like that on railways, that at the bottom of the Burton Dasset Hills, who swore he saw this light, this white light about the size of a football, an English soccer ball, coming down the railway tracks towards him and then shot off into the sky. The vicar of the church on top of the Burton Dasset Hills back in the 1920s claimed that him and there was him and a number of parishioners saw a light at the end of the driveway to the vicarage, just hovering there and moving around and crackling. And as they approached it, it moved away, and then they moved back and it moved towards them again and then shot off. And there was many other over the years accounts of these lights being seen on the Burton Dasset Hills near Stratford upon Avon. I think maybe the nearest town to it is Banbury in Warwickshire, or maybe Warwick, not quite sure. Anyway, people had seen these lights for ages. I've known people saying that, oh, well, there was an army base near there in the war or before the war, and there could be things going on for that. Like, you know, some of the lights could be accounted for by maneuvers by the army, but a lot of them couldn't, especially when there's multiple witnesses seeing what these people were describing. Anyway, myself and Jody and Graham, those are the three of us involved, went one night. We were there when it was still light, but we went up to see a lake which was associated, there was an old folly there or something associated with the Templars. Can't remember what it was. Went to this lake called Farnborough Lake, which is in the Burton Dasset Hills. And when we were there, I mean, nowhere anywhere else about. There was trees all around the lake, and it's quite secluded. And when we were there, it got dark, and I can't remember why we were still there when it was dark, but suddenly across the lake, we saw this red light appear, and it literally looked like a small red light. And at first I thought maybe it's somebody there with a cigarette or something over the other side. And then it got bigger, then it sort of went out, and then it appeared somewhere higher up, and then moved again, and then did this a few times, but you couldn't see. It was too dark to see if there was anything around it other than just the light. And then it kind of grew in size, about to the size maybe almost of a soccer ball. This red light was hanging over the water. And back then, phones didn't have cameras on them. I didn't even have mobile phones, cell phones back then. I don't think we had a camera with us. We couldn't get a picture of it. It would have been amazing to get this, because it literally floated across the lake towards us, and you could see there was nothing underneath it, nothing behind it or anything. And it was just there until it just went, there was this kind of noise, and then and it just went off. And it was not a firework. I mean, when it went up, it sort of did this sort of spiral shape. But it came towards us as if, I don't know, I think we all felt it like was watching us. I mean, if this is like some kind of ball lightning or natural phenomena, why, it doesn't seem to behave like that. I think Paul Devereux in his book Earthlights suggested that there's some interaction between this phenomena and human sort of perception. In other words, it sort of does what the mind thinks or interacts with us in some way. You'd have to read the book for his theory. All I can say is it seemed like it was curious about us. That wasn't the last one I saw, but the three of us saw. We wandered around. A number of occasions we went around the Burton Dasset Hills at night, hoping to see something like that again. And on another occasion, by this little stream, if you're ever at the Burton Dasset Hills in the centre of England, and you go down to the bottom of the hill on the side that the M40 motorway is, and you get down there, there's an old cottage that used to be part of this Templar preceptory where the Templars were back in the Middle Ages. It's been turned into a cottage. It was a barn when we first went there, like an old chapel that had been converted into a barn, but now they've converted it into a cottage. It's in a place called Temple Hardwick, which is just a little village named after the Templars. We were just by there and right opposite there's like a pool. If you go the opposite side of the road to this old building, there is this pool, and a little stream goes into it and then runs away down towards the lower ground. And we saw this blue crackling kind of thing come down the stream, hover over the pool, come towards us, kind of go. There was like sparks flying off of it, and then it kind of went back, came towards us again, and again disappeared into the air like this spiral thing. Again, we refer to that, I think, in the book, my book, the Templars and the Ark of the Covenant. I mean, we were thinking at the time, if the Ark of the Covenant was hidden there, was it making strange things happen? I certainly did think that it was interesting that in the Bible, by the way, we never found the Ark of the Covenant, but we did think maybe the Templars may have hidden it somewhere in the Burton Dasset Hills. That's another story. I won't bother going into that. But what is interesting about what the Bible says, it talks about the lost ark, and what it can do is lights appear above it. There's like two golden angels carved onto the lid, and their wings outstretched like this. You've seen it in Indiana Jones thing. Well, right between where the two angels' wings are, according to the Bible, there is something appears there called the glory of the Lord. It seems to be some kind of light, or but it's then that some various that God speaks to the Israelites. Now, is a voice coming out of this thing, or is it that somebody who's a priest or a prophet goes into some sort of trance and starts telling people what they should do? I just think that's interesting. And what a really interesting thing is the place that I've identified in I don't know if I'd say it in that book, but yes, I do, I think. Anyway, I've identified the possibility of where Mount Sinai, where God appeared to the Israelites, was in the Bible, in the Sinai wilderness, as possibly being a mountain called Jebel Madaba, which is in Petra, which is an ancient city dating from Roman times, but there's mountains above it which were being considered holy much earlier than the Roman times. And one of these mountains could be the mountain of God, where, according to the Bible, all sorts of strange things are seen on the top, the glory of the Lord. Well, in that area, a lot of people do see now, Bedouin tribespeople there have got stories going back years, centuries, about strange lights being seen on the top of this mountain. And again, what are these? Are we just talking about a natural phenomena? Are we talking about some kind of intelligent lights? Why do they just happen in this area? It does seem they prefer certain types of sandstone, like there's a form of sandstone called bunter sandstone, which is incidentally a sort of sandstone that also is used in the making of bricks. And a research project I was involved in years ago suggested that more houses that are haunted are built from bunter sandstone than any others in this country. I mean, that might mean something. Is it able to sort of hold some kind of energy that people later see as ghosts or something? I don't know. But the final story of this of strange lights that I'm connected with is like so weird that you kind of think, well, this isn't just some natural phenomena. Those of you who have read my book, The Green Stone, which I wrote back in 79 or 80, the events took place in 1979, or this particular event early 1980. Was concerning that this was in the book. It's at the end of that book, and I've also made a film that's actually on my Facebook thing, my YouTube channel called The Green Stone. It's a half-an-hour thing. You can see all the weird things that happened on that without having to bother to read the book. And at the end of that adventure, what we were doing is, well, what had happened varies. This is a really potted explanation of it, but we were living in a haunted house. There was a magazine that I was the editor of back at that time called Strange Phenomena that used to investigate the paranormal, obviously. And we had this house, old Victorian house, as the offices of the magazine in a town called Wolverhampton in central England, isn't it? Probably because I can't be bothered to go any further than that to do any investigation. Anyway, this house that we were in, because we were getting so many people turning up who were mediums, and we were doing experiments with seances and that, the house ended up being haunted. It may have been for other reasons to do with a strange green gemstone that was discovered, but that's another story. The fact is that there was a haunting in this house, and I didn't see that much, but a lot of other people were being scared witless, and people wouldn't work for the magazine anymore or come to work. So what we were trying to think how to stop this. Well, there was a woman we knew at the time called Marion, who was quite a pretty amazing sort of psychic. She'd being tested by various people, and one couldn't, what she was able to do was way beyond chance. And she said that she'd had a dream that what we had to do was to take this green stone that had been found to a place called White Ladies Priory, which is an old ruined monastic building not far from Wolverhampton in central England. If you want to look on a map, it's very near somewhere called Boscobel House, which is where Charles II hid from Oliver Cromwell's men during the English Civil War. Anyway, White Ladies Priory, ruined priory. You can just go there. Anyone can go there at night. Kids go there and scare each other in the dark. So, it's not, anyone can go there. I mean, the ruined walls, there's no roof on it or anything. And Marion put this stone. Now, this stone was all dark. You'd have to, if you want to know what the stone was, watch the video that I made called The Green Stone on this YouTube channel thing. Anyway, she put the stone on this old burial mound that was about 50 yards from the priory. And there was 9 of us there at the time. We all went back behind the walls of the priory because Marion thought something would be dangerous. I mean, I didn't really expect anything to happen. But anyway, at this particular time when she said something's going to happen, or 9:15 or something, it did. Suddenly there was these kind of balls of light suddenly switched on, if you like, in this copse of trees that surrounded where this burial mound was, where she'd put the stone. And I was thinking, what on earth is that? People moving around? And these various lights came on. Then they kind of in the trees fused together to make one big ball of light, and it was huge. I mean, like this sort of bright, and you could see inside there seemed to be lighter blues and darker blue colors in there, like you'd get in Arctic ice or something. And they were moving around, and I couldn't. I mean, this could not have been a trick of any kind, because they didn't have drones back then. They didn't. I mean, you could possibly do it now, but suddenly this thing rose into the air and hovered above the trees, started to move towards us, and there was these like weird sounds, sort of like a bird crying, like rah, 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 like with it. I don't know if that was birds being frightened by it in the copse of trees, but then it came towards us and just went and kind of exploded with this kind of light that lit up the whole area. 3 of the people there had never had any paranormal experiences before in their life, or weren't even interested, including a guy called Mike Ratcliffe, who was a local horticulture officer for the council, who was only there because he was saying, well, you know, I don't want you to be doing any damage to the trees or anything. So he was kind of there as an official kind of observer to make sure we didn't do anything to mess up the area. And if you watch the Greenstone video, you'll see him talking about it. He was gobsmacked as to what could be seen. And he said that, you know, there's no way that could have been any natural thing that could have occurred. He also said the strange noises of the animals that no animals he'd ever heard, and he was a country dweller, had ever sounded anything like that. But there was a guy there who was a magistrate for Stoke-on-Trent City. I mean, these people would be believed in a court of law. I mean, obviously I was there, but people would say, yeah, but you write books about this stuff, don't you? You've got a vested interest. These people didn't, but you can see them being interviewed on the Greenstone film I made. And then I've had to reconstruct at the end what it kind of looked like using AI, but obviously back then there was no way that anyone could have made that happen. But so the way, kind of what I'm saying is, what do I think aliens are, or UFOs are? They're obviously probably a lot of different things, but because a lot of UFOs that people claim to see all over the world and have claimed to have seen are lights in the sky. That was when what's his name? I saw him talk once. J. Allen Hynek coined the term "close encounters of the third kind" for encounters with aliens. Close encounters of the first kind were like seeing a kind of an object, you know, whether it's got windows in or metal or whatever, an object. Close encounters of the second kind was if the object leaves indentations or any evidence behind. Third is if you see aliens or see occupants. But there was, other than that, he also coined the word daylight discs for a disc seen at a distance. That's a bit kind of, I mean, are all UFOs discs? Anyway, he had that terminology. And then there was another terminology, LITS, L-I-T-S, lights in the sky. And that's what most UFOs seem to be. Okay, lights that doing things that, you know, a plane couldn't do, like right angle turns or whatever. And some of those might be the kind of things that I've witnessed. And each one of those tends, in each case, it can't really, in my humble opinion, be something that's just a natural phenomena, or whatever it is. If it is a natural phenomenon, it seems to have some kind of intelligence or something. Anyway, that's my experience with what may be aliens, and so I have spoken about ancient aliens, because of the possibility that what was seen on Mount Sinai might have been something like that. Who knows? But anyway, there we go. Let's have a look. There's a few people said a few things here. Sounds rather like this is Ian saying the Longdendale lights in northwest Derbyshire. Oh God, yes. I've never. Yeah, I read about those once. It's like a valley, isn't it? Yes, I'll actually look into that again. Stuart says intelligent plasma. I think I used the word geoplasma once for this sort of thing, something to do with the earth and it does seem to be like intelligent plasma, but then plasma is so bloody hot. Wouldn't it have burned our faces off? Just a thought. Maybe there's cool plasma. Johnny Wells, hi Graham, do you think the ancient mounds could be plasma generators? I know people who say that they could be because of the way, say, for example, the Silbury Hill near Avebury in southern England is built of layers of chalk, and that's the biggest artificial hill in the country, built in the time of megalithic times, i.e., built time of the building of Stonehenge about 4,500 to 5,000 years ago. And they say this is like an accumulator, different types of chalk, then gravel, then chalk, then gravel. There was never, certainly nothing inside when archaeologists dug up Silbury Hill. There was no burial chambers in it or below it. And since it's been thoroughly investigated by geophysics, it's just an artificial hill. And nobody knows why it was built. There's others around the country, none of them. That's the biggest. But near large stone circles, they always built these artificial hills. There's another one in North Wales called Gop Cairn. It's almost as big, nothing inside it. There's a stone circle in Derbyshire called Arbor Low, and not far from it, about 100 yards away, there's a small hill. It's about, I don't know how many, 20 feet high or something. And later, there's a burial inside it, but they now know from archaeology that the burials were only put in there much after it was built. So some later group of people decided to use it for burials. And again, each time one of these artificial hills near stone circles have been excavated, they are found to have been these layers, different layers of rock. So some people have said that there's some sort of accumulator. My own personal opinion about stone circles and stuff is there's a possibility that people, when stone circles were built, they were built on places where people had seen these lights. So they're kind of marking where these things might be seen. But anyway, there you go on that one. Yes. Wonder if these lights are associated with ley lines. Yeah, kind of that's coming on to that. John Michel wrote a book that I read when I was at school years ago called The Flying Source of Vision. John Michel is more famous. He's the guy who's famous for bringing ley lines to everyone's attention. They were first christened ley lines by a man called Alfred Watkins in the 1920s, I believe. And he said that various stone circles and standing stones and other megalithic earthworks and monuments did tend to fall in straight lines more than you'd expect by chance alone. He thought they were ancient trade routes. John Michel, who was interested in ancient flying saucer stories, he actually wrote Flying Saucer Vision before the Eric von Daniken got the thing of Was God an Astronaut? The Chariots of the Gods. Before that really got everybody thinking, wow, are some of these, strange things people saw in the past and in the Bible, maybe encounters with extraterrestrials or UFOs. But John Michel was there before anybody, as far as I know. There's probably others that said about it. But the first I read was Flying Saucer Vision, where he describes things in the Bible like the wheel that Ezekiel sees in his vision as possibly being a UFO. But then in his book, View Over Atlantis, incidentally, John Michel lived in Glastonbury, so he was right in the middle of all this hippie stuff. He pretty much started it all in this country anyway. And he's got ley lines. He took up the idea of these ley lines that Alfred Watkins had first postulated, and said that they could be energy lines, some kind of earth energy, along which lights were seen to travel, and people saw, I think he thought that UFOs might actually use this energy to move around, but how would that get into space? I don't know. But other people, and I think Paul Devereux said this as well, ley hunter people, in his book, was it in the Ley Hunter Companion? Some of these various ley hunters have thought that these balls of light often travel along ley lines. Well, so far as I know, no one's actually proved yet that ley lines are real in an electromagnetic sense. There are certainly alignments of stones and various megalithic monuments that are in alignments across, miles of countryside that were clearly intended to be alignments, but and people claim to have seen strange lights moving along them. So I'll leave that at that, I think. Johnny says, even the chalk of Silbury Hill is conductive when wet. Yes, sometimes when it gets really wet, you get all the sort of water around it and it just stays there, doesn't it? Well, I would have thought it would, on chalk, it would be more porous, but interesting. Mark says the US has their congressional hearing this Wednesday about UAPs. Hopeful for some. Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that. I'll look out for that one. Thanks for that info. Stuart says plasma can be cold too. Oh, can it? Touch neon light tube. Oh, yeah. That's plasma inside. Thank you. I didn't know that. That's brilliant. I just thought it was light. I've never actually looked inside one. Ah, brilliant. Thank you for that information. I suppose also those things, those round things that you put your hands on and go, that's plasma, isn't it? Yeah. And that's everyone for the moment. Anyway, thank you very much for listening. And I've gone on for 35 minutes. So I shall leave this up for anyone to see. Thank you. And I will start trying to schedule when these things are. Bye for now.